Paul runs a factory which makes tile grouting.
It was a normal day, normal weekday. I'd had a call from the couple of guys who worked with me to say they were ill, so I was here on my own.
So Paul took it upon himself to operate an industrial cement mixer.
When I switched the machine on and it was unguarded, I did notice that there was powder coming up into the atmosphere, and I saw that as a danger.
Cement ingredients are loaded into the mixer through an opening in its top. To stop dust blowing out, Paul covered the hole with a large sheet of cardboard.
In effect, I disguised the hole, the filling area, into a piece of flooring. In doing so, I created my own man trap. The phone rang, I ran across the floor, and my left foot stepped onto the cardboard, straight in.
Paul fell, feet first, down into the mixer's drum. He sank into the cement, leaving only his head and shoulders sticking out the top. The giant blades of the machine sliced into each of his limbs.
And I could clearly see that my hands were damaged badly. I realised I was in a lot of trouble, but I also realised very quickly, in fact, that there was no way I was going to get out. I was working on my own. There was nobody nearby. I wasn't close to death. It wasn't a clear near-death situation. I was definitely going to die.
But outside the factory, a truck driver pulled up.
And I arrived on site, got backed in, started to unload.
There was no chance I felt anybody could hear me, but you still do it. And I shouted out 3 times, if there's anybody can hear me, I need help.
Mick was outside and couldn't hear Paul's cries. He was supposed to stay there for an hour while his truck was unloaded, but after 5 minutes, he came inside.
I think he came along to have a chat and a cup of tea. And bless him, it's for that reason alone that I'm living now.
All of a sudden I just heard this mumble from somewhere. Looked up and I just saw this head, you know, sort of over the top of the mixer. And I thought, oh my God, somebody's fell in. So I hit all the red buttons I could see to shut everything down as I thought. I run back to my truck then to dial for the emergency services.
He then came back, he climbed into the machine to hold me and to reassure me.
Basically I hugged him, you know, just basically that's all I did really.
Emergency services were scrambled and an air ambulance was sent from Blackpool.
The flying time probably was about 10 to 15 minutes from what I recall.
I could hear the sirens in the distance.
On entering the factory, Paul was found to be entrapped in a machine up to his neck and shoulders, buried in white powder. You could see he had damage to his hands and his fingers and his other hand. But we were mainly concerned about injuries to his lower body.
Paul's left leg had been completely severed below the knee, and he'd lost digits from both hands. But he was in too much shock to realise this.
He was very calm, he was just very still.
There was no pain. Perhaps it was my body just protecting me against the trauma and against any pain. Went into this beautiful, floating, stunning experience, it really was.
To get him out of the machine, we had to physically lift him straight up and clear of the machine, so it was quite a job.
I was loaded along with my leg, although I didn't know at the time, but with bits and pieces of me, fingers and stuff, in an ice bucket from the local.
He came straight from the helicopter pad into the acute theatres of Wythenshawe Hospital. He was subject to pulling and twisting of the tissues, and the cement or plaster on the tissues is in itself a chemical burn.
Surgeons began with Paul's severed leg. Not all of it could be saved.
You do not replant a foot that's amputated like this, but you can use it for spare parts.
They saved my kneecap by closing the wound by using the sole of my foot as a flap.
Below his left knee, Paul now wears an artificial limb, but the surgeons were able to save more of his right hand.
On this hand, I'd lost all my fingers. They never ever actually found my little finger, but Gus replanted these 3 digits here.
What is now Paul's right thumb was again recycled from his severed foot.
We took the big toe and placed this on the dorsum of his right hand.
Finally, surgeons transplanted more flesh, this time from Paul's back, to rebuild his left hand. Paul endured 22 hours of operations. Afterwards, a surgeon had to tell him what they hadn't managed to save.
Next time I woke up was in intensive care. He explained I'd lost my leg, and I could see my hands were in cast. He said, but the hands are back on. And I started to cry, and he got quite concerned. He says, and he tried to reassure me. He says, look, I'm not crying for that reason, Harry. I'm crying because I'm so happy and blessed to still be here, and for you guys to be working so hard for me.
I got to the ward, told them who I was, and they let me in. And he looked at me, I looked at him, and the pair of us just sat on his bed, hugging one another, and floods of tears, really. Very emotional.
He's overcome his injuries. He's managed to maintain a normal life.
I was walking after 5 weeks. Anyway, I was discharged after 6 or 7 weeks, and I was straight back to work then.
I honestly don't know how he was still here. But he is, he's amazing, absolutely amazing guy.